so delighted to welcome Charlene Yared West to today's summit, to the Pregnancy, Birth and Baby Summit, as part of opening up the doors for the Due Date Club, which is the first of its kind, all-inclusive, safe and online private space for pregnant moms. I met Charlene online before I met her in person. We got to know each other, and I was so impressed and inspired by her because she is the founder and proud founder of the first online birthing school in South Africa. She's been a doula for a decade since the birth of her son, which launched her passion into birth work. And since her own transformational birth experience, she's supported over 350 women on their birth journeys, walking with them every step of the way. She believes that each birth is a gift, each birth is a story in its own right, and she strives to empower women to have a better birth, no matter what turn it takes. After the birth of her own son, Charlene went on to become a hypnobirthing practitioner, a birth doula, postpartum doula, and a professional clinical hypnotherapist, as well as a placenta encapsulation specialist. Her extensive experience in the birth field and hypnotherapy, as well as her skills as a journalist, helped her to create the Relax into Birth online school, the first proudly South African online birth preparation school, teaching women and their partners hypnobirthing techniques and deep relaxation methods for a more comfortable and manageable birth experience at home or in the hospital for natural or cesarean birth. Her aim at every birth is to inform parents of their options, to educate, empower, and mirror exactly what the mother needs, so the experience that she has is a positive one. And if you don't already know, and if you haven't already listened, Charlene and I have a podcast called the Doula and the Midwife podcast, and every week we get together and we talk about birthy stuff. It's literally just like sitting around the kitchen table and discussing everything birth, pregnancy, baby, and beyond. And we delve into all the topics that generally come up for moms and babies. And I'm so happy to have Charlene with us today. Charlene, welcome. And I'm going to hand over control to you. I know that you have a presentation that you're going to be sharing with us. So go ahead and you can start. Thank you so much for joining me. And for all the lovely ladies, once again, to thank you for joining us today to share in this Pregnancy, Birth and Baby Summit. Charlene, I'm not sure if it's just me, but I'm not hearing anything from you.
Okay. Okay, give me 1 second.
So if there's any sound on your video, for some reason it is not.
Give me 1 second. Let's just see what is happening here.
Shame, you sound a little bit bunged up.
I am. I am. Right. This should work now. Let's try
Okay.
this.
I'm going to mute.
Okay. Just give me a thumbs up if it's working. Hello, everybody. I am so excited to be here with all of you today for this amazing launch of the Due Date Club with Midwife Karen Wilmot. I'm just so excited to share with you today. So, we know that the birthing landscape is changing and not necessarily for the better. However, let's look at that. So, worldwide cesarean section rates have risen from around 7% in 1990 to 21% today. And these statistics are projected to continue increasing over this current decade. In South Africa, it is at a staggering 77%, which is extremely high, considering that the World Health Organization only recommends 15%. So at this point, I'd like to give you a little reminder about what birth really is. Birth is a normal, non-medical event. It's a natural, involuntary process orchestrated by neurochemicals and hormones released during labor and birth. And surprise, surprise, 95% of women are able to have a normal vaginal birth. Yet, we have such a high cesarean rate in South Africa of 77%. Hypnobirthing can facilitate a normal, positive, empowered birth no matter what turn your birthing takes. So even if it is a cesarean in the end, having done a hypnobirthing course will enable you to have a more positive birth experience. So we are the only species to fear our births. We are the only species to attend antenatal classes, which is quite hilarious if you think about it. So we are humans, which means we are mammals, which means we are instinctive, primal, uninhibited, and feeling creatures. We are also social beings, which means we are inhibited. We can be inhibited. We can be shy, contained, reserved, overthinking, over mentalizing, natural processes that need us to go into our bodies as opposed to being in our minds, in our thinking minds. So, fearless and empowered birth is the answer for a better birth experience. And this is where Relaxing to Birth hypnobirthing comes in. The course empowers you with information to make better decisions during your labor and birth process, and also informs you around why relaxation is so important for your labor process. To date, I have taught over 1,200 couples the hypnobirthing technique for their labors and births. So hypnobirthing might as well be called relaxobirthing, and this is Relaxing to Birth. It enables you to have a stress-free, fearless pregnancy. It enables you to create more endorphins in your body every day and have better sleep and better falling asleep faster. That is what I hear very often from moms. Confidence and excitement, a birth free from fear and anxiety, a feeling of having had an empowered birth, and because you've had such a good experience during your labor and birth, you will have a much better postpartum experience and easier breastfeeding. So, hypnobirthing helps you to relax into birth with ease. It is practical and grounded in evidence. It's an effective method of pain management. It's powerful and easy to use, and importantly, reduces the need for medical pain relief and interventions, and is very useful for dads and partners to also use, and of course for moms. So, if you think about it, where does our fear from birth come from? So, I'm going to list a few. This is by no means a conclusive list. So the doctor or care provider might say something like, your baby is way too big for you to be birthing. Your shoe size is too small, which is one that really does my head in because it's a myth. That story is a myth. The only thing to ascertain if your baby will fit through the pelvis, and this is backed by research in the Cochrane database, is if you have a trial of labor. So you have to try labor out. Where else does our fear come from? How was your period? Celebrated or shamed when you first got it? Stories and advice from family or friends. Yes, this is a big one. When you're pregnant, you're a magnet for horror stories. And the media, including films, social media, the internet, and Google. We really don't have to look very far to see how this can play into our fears. And the vocabulary around birth, like bloody show, like rupture of membranes, as opposed to showtime. and releasing of waters. There's so many more positive words. And then negative associations with hospitals. When you go into hospital as a pregnant woman about to have your baby, you put on the hospital gown and take on the mantle of being a patient. Rather wear your own clothes. That will make you feel more empowered and stronger and not like a sick patient, because you're not sick, you're very, very healthy and well. And last but not least, and not conclusive on this list, is any trauma to your pelvis, molestation or abuse, sadly. Right. All of those fears result in this fear, tension, and pain cycle, which starts to spin out of control in labor. So if you have a lot of fear of the process, then you have a lot of tension or holding in your body, and that leads to more pain. More pain is scary, so more fear, more tension, more pain. And hypnobirthing says that if we remove the fear factor from this cycle, then you will release tension and you will have less pain. And the medical response to this is either to give a epidural or to augment the process with synthetic oxytocin, because fear also slows down labor. So humans, our brains are like gears of a car. So we either kick into our parasympathetic nervous system gear, which is our feed, breed, rest, digest, and birth states of mind and body, or we kick into our sympathetic nervous system gear, which is our states of fight, flight, and freeze, and survival mode. Survival mode triggers adrenaline, which slows down labor. We know this. And there are additional fears that could be triggered by the fight, flight, or freeze response, and vice versa, triggered by them. So fear of birth, hospital space, bright lights, moving from home to hospital, so transfer, medical procedures, obstetric abuse and violence, procedures done without consent. All of these would trigger adrenaline and slow down labor, as opposed to a calm response. Hypnobirthing triggers endorphins and oxytocin and speeds up labor or helps progress labor. So the feed, breed, rest, digest, birth response is triggered by hypnobirthing, listening to your hypnobirthing tracks, music and aromatherapy, calm and low lighting, a kind birth team, love making or self-pleasuring. This can be helpful for pain relief in labor, also known as flicking the bead, and not being observed. So does fear affect the workings of the uterus? A big fat yes, sadly it does. So here we have the amazing uterus. And Ina May Gaskin said, if men had such an organ, they would also brag about it. So should we. So here we have the uterus, right? We have 3 layers to the uterus. We have the outer longitudinal muscle layer, right? We have this middle layer, which provides the outer and inner layers with oxygenated blood. And we have the circular muscle layer, which is the layer closest to your baby. And they fit over each other like that. Longitudinal muscle on the outside, circular muscle on the inside. So during a surge, which is another word for a contraction, a more positive word, we have the longitudinal muscles pulling the circular muscles up. These muscles are stimulated by the hormone oxytocin. And oxytocin always results in an ejection reflex during with the milk ejection reflex. How amazing are our bodies. So oxytocin stimulates the longitudinal muscles to pull the circular muscles up and build a thick muscle at the top here called the fundus, which then helps to nudge and push the baby down and out. The secondary effect of these longitudinal muscles pulling the circular muscles up is that it thins and opens the cervix to 10 centimeters. How amazing! When you are calm, relaxed, and in your hypnobirthing state, your circular muscles will move and you will have progress. But if you are in a state of fight, flight, or freeze, your circular muscles become stuck and won't move. You'll still have the longitudinal muscles pulling because your body knows it's in labor, but your circular muscles will say, sorry guys, we're not doing this right now. We are not moving because your circular muscles are so connected to what's going on in your mind and your state of being. If you're in a fear state, your circular muscles say, this is not a safe place for my baby to be born, so we shut down and we slow down labor. And we've been able to slow down labor for millions of years. Even all mammals are able to do that. Elephants form a circle around the birthing mother, facing outwards, protecting her from predators. And we feel the same. If we have a threat, which might be too much light, too many interruptions, a fight with your partner, a rough vaginal examination, whatever it is, the circular muscles respond to that and you go into fight, flight, or freeze. So, hypnosis is the answer. And don't be scared of the word hypnosis, it is just another word for relaxation. Hypnosis comes in and you relax deeply. Removes resistance is the second thing, which blocks out all distractions because you set aside a time every day to lie down or sit wherever you're comfortable or listen to them in the car. But those are only the affirmations. The ones that let you sleep, you have to not use any heavy machinery or no driving. So you would listen to them at home and it removes resistance, which means it opens up your subconscious mind so that new information can be implanted into your subconscious mind, removing your fear. So, hypnobirthing fits here in between being wide awake and fast asleep. It fits in here in this area here of the brain waves. So somewhere between the alpha waves and the theta waves, which is where your subconscious mind is, right? You don't want to be functioning so much when you're birthing in your conscious mind because it puts you into your headspace. You want to sink deeper into more restful brain waves and into your limbic brain. You want to sink here into your limbic system, which is where your pituitary is as well. So this center over here controls your hormonal release. And as human beings, we have these three layers to our brain. We have the biggest part of our brain, which is called the neocortex. And we share this with all primates on Earth. But as human beings, we have the biggest neocortex of all creatures on earth, and that allows us the ability to do all of these things, have abstract thoughts, do maths, etc. And then we share the limbic system with all mammals on earth. So every single mammal has also got a limbic system, which means it has a hormonal system as well. And then we share the reptilian brain part of our brain with all reptiles on earth. So reptiles only have this little part of brain which they function from. And our part of our reptilian brain is our fight and flight and freeze response. So we want to be able to sink into our limbic part of our brain. And that is achieved through hypnosis another word hypnobirthing, another word for it relaxobirthing, another word for it relaxation, and suggestion. So new suggestions can be put into the subconscious mind where our fears are also embedded so that new information, long-term permanent memory, can be placed in here. And we're only looking at the small part of your brain around birth. We don't look at anything else. We focused very much on what is going on for you around the topic of birth. And hypnobirthing overlays positive affirmations and suggestions which carry you through your pregnancy and make sure that your first response to birth is a happy response, which triggers the hormones endorphins, oxytocin, and a whole range of the love cocktail of hormones, as Michelle O'Don calls them, as opposed to your stress hormones, which are your catecholamines, which you want to avoid. So I'd like to share with you this little video to explain, to show you how hypnobirthing helped this couple. And they are two doctors. Enjoy it.
I've always been interested in hypnobirthing, even more, you could say, being interested in slightly more alternative medicine, slightly more alternative way of doing things, even being a doctor. And I was just really looking for something to, number one, help with my anxiety. I think normal birth anxiety is quite common. And then the second thing is I just wanted to feel part of the experience, and I wanted to be able to enjoy the experience. I didn't want to look back and have that thing of grabbing your husband by the neck saying, "You did this to me and it was horrible." It's a beautiful...
Now she says, "You did this to me."
It was a really beautiful pregnancy and a really beautiful delivery, and I'm just really pleased that we have done it. I could actually use those resources, because I think a lot of times when I've spoken to people about hypnobirthing or that I was doing hypnobirthing, they often said, well, you know, when you're in labor, you might feel differently. And it was this constant thing to say, I'm in charge of this. I'm in charge of my mind. I'm in charge of how I respond to things. And that's what was so useful to have Chris, is that every time if there was slight panic or the surge was a bit stronger than the previous one, that he could ground me again and say, you know what you're doing. You can do this. We can get you to that safe space. I felt this sort of out of body. I was at the beach. And it was just this incredible feeling, because it's not, it's painful, it's sore, you're laboring, but to have this peace and calm and know that you're okay and know that you've got this place that you can go to cope with the pain was amazing. But it was just fantastic to see that it's not just about the birth, it was in the pregnancy as well, the whole birth experience, and then afterwards as well. And even now I found myself going back to breathing when I'm feeling overwhelmed, go back to the breathing. I think we had a difficult night the other night, and Chris said, just go to your safe space, just go to your safe space. So it's become quite in our household, the norm now to breathe yourself out of a difficult situation and to take yourself to your safe space and to not be so easily overwhelmed. Being doctors, we want things to be scientific, we want things to be proven. Where's the research? Where's all the journal articles and whatever? And so in the beginning, he was quite skeptical, but I think it's proven itself now. And we are now hypnobirthing converts and telling all of our friends to do the course. I feel that your course takes really nicely through the steps of, this is what you can expect. This is how it's going to go, that you can feel empowered and you can feel excited because you know what's happening to your body, you know what's happening to yourself, and you can just relax into that. It's not a process that you can control. It's not a process that you can speed up or slow down. Your body will do its thing. So get on the train and enjoy the ride and have the tools that make it a pleasant experience.
So this is just some images of previous courses that I did. all happy, beautiful human beings expecting to have their baby soon. So hypnobirthing, relax into birth, hypnobirthing is just so easy to use, and you can gain maximum benefit from implementing these 3 easy steps. So get the Relax into Birth hypnobirthing course, do the content and learn the techniques, and listen to your audio hypnobirthing tracks daily. That is all you have to do. There are 13. And that way you will have a more comfortable, calm birth, no matter what turn it takes. So we haven't met yet, but I care deeply about you having an empowered, calm birth. And that is why I do what I doula. I've been a birth doula since 2012 at over more than 300 births, so 400 births. Hypnobirthing practitioner since 2012, hypnotherapist since 2016, and the founder of Relax into Birth Hypnobirthing since 2016. Hypnobirthing is changing the birthing landscape, one birth at a time. So if you wish to win a Relax into Birth course today, just follow those 4 easy steps and you might win. I wish you all the luck, and thank you so much for letting me share something that is very close to my heart. And I would love to see you on the course, and I'm opening up now for questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Charlene. That was amazing. It was so good to get your perspective. Let me just pop my video back on. And once again, thank you to everybody who's still here, everybody who's joined throughout. And this is your time now to ask Charlene. So hit us up with your questions about hypnobirthing. And if there aren't any questions, I'm going to actually ask Charlene to share a little bit about how she came to do hypnobirthing and how she felt when she fell pregnant with her son. But I see there's a question from Tracy. Do you train up? Now that's a conversation we've had.
Yes, it's a good question. Thank you, Tracy. I'm considering it. I would definitely consider it, yes. It's a really lovely package, so that's something to consider in the near future.
Fantastic. There's a lot going down here. I'll tell you what, lots of collaboration and things happening. At the moment, I'm also streaming to Instagram. So,
oh,
right.
cool.
First customer, Tracy. Yay. It's all happening here.
Thank you, Tracy.
While we're waiting for some questions, Charlene, would you mind sharing a little bit about how you came to get into hypnobirthing and how you felt when you first fell pregnant with your beautiful son, Leonardo?
Okay, so it's a good story. I think it's a good story.
It's a great story.
So when I fell pregnant with my son, the very first thought I had was, there's just no way this baby's coming out of there. Not happening. I want a cesarean. There's just no way I'm even going to consider a vaginal birth. And my husband was the first person to say to me, Charlene, what is wrong with you? You know, you should at least try. Millions of women have given birth before you. You should at least try. And I was highly irritated with him because he doesn't have a vagina. And then I chose a random doctor at a random hospital. And so I didn't do any research into care providers, as you should. You really, really should. But I didn't do any of that. I just arrived at my gynae appointment and said, please can you give me a date for my Caesar so that I can get my hair done, nails done. I can arrive looking glam for the birth of my baby. And so he just looked at me all irritated and said, you know, if you want that kind of birth, then you need to go to that hospital over there. But I'm not that kind of doctor, and I'm not giving you that kind of birth here. So there was 2 men now telling me to have a vaginal birth that I wasn't too keen on. But as one does when you're pregnant, you either go on holiday or you do renovations. But we went on holiday, so we went away to Botswana. And at this holiday home, we stayed with my husband's family, and his aunt this is where it gets a little bit involved, but just stay with me. His aunt was in the early stages of Alzheimer's. And so every time she saw my pregnant belly, she would say, "Oh, how are you doing? Who are you? You're pregnant." And then she'd launch into her birth stories every day. So her two sons were born a few years apart in the UK with a gynecologist who was also her hypnotherapist. And he had taken her through the whole birth, both births medically, obviously seeing to her medical needs, but also mentally. So walking her through relaxation techniques so that when she birthed them, she said that she couldn't remember a lot of pain or discomfort, which was interesting in itself because she was in the early stages of Alzheimer's, which just shows that your birth really does sink deeply into your limbic part of your brain where your memories are stored. And you just need to ask any woman who's had a baby, she'll tell you she remembers it like yesterday. So anyway, after that, I knew I had to look into it. So when I got back to Cape Town from my holiday, I just Googled hypnosis and birth. I didn't know there was such a thing as hypnobirthing, but there it popped up on the Google search, hypnobirthing, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. And there was a course just around the corner from me. And so I dragged my husband along to this hypnobirthing course. He wasn't kicking and screaming, but let's just say he wasn't too keen, but he went anyway. And from planning this hospital elective cesarean birth, we decided on a home birth with the midwives. And I chose Angela Wakeford, who is a midwife in Cape Town. And I had a water birth, and Leonardo, my son, came swimming out in the water. And I just remember feeling so overwhelmed with love. And then the second thought was like, why didn't I know this from the beginning? And why don't women know this, that they have options and there isn't just one way to have your baby, So I became quite passionate about that and then went on to study first hypnobirthing practitioner training. And then I became a birth doula and then hypnotherapy course. And then a postpartum birth doula, and just absolutely love what I do. So that's the origin story. We all like a good origin story. But I was really lucky in how things just flowed, and there were a lot of very clear signposts along the way as to what I should do next. So I'm just continuing in this work.
Love what you do, doula.
I do. And I've been having such fun with you. So thank you. I love our weekly get-togethers and chats on our for our podcast. So much fun, and your coffee is always good.
Well, if anybody hasn't listened to our podcast, make sure you find it, the Doula and the Midwife podcast, or the Virtual Midwife podcast, or the Relax into Birth podcast. We share it across all platforms on Spotify and Google Play. So wherever you normally listen to your podcast, that's where you'll find it. And it is literally like this, where we sit down and we have an open conversation about all the topics that come up for us. Usually it's actually answering a question that's come up from one of the people who've purchased and taken the Relax into Birth course. And of course, that's going to continue as we start with the Due Date Club. So looking forward to that. And I'm surprised that there aren't any questions. You've probably answered them all because you've given everything away. But
there is a freebie there'll be freebies on the Due Date Club, of course, but there is a freebie on, I'll share it in the actual Instagram post where you can win a Relax into Birth course, but there's certain steps to take in order to stand in line to win the course.
Of course, a little Instagram special. So make sure that you are on our Instagram. So for mine, it's Virtual Midwife. For Charlene, it's Relax into Birth. And then you will see the details of that competition so that you can stand in line to win your own copy of the Relax into Birth Hypnobirthing course, which will absolutely transform. I mean, it hasn't just changed the landscape of birth in South Africa, hypnobirthing is changing the landscape of birth around the world, and it will definitely transform the way that you experience your birth. And that doesn't mean that it will change. It's not about the way your baby comes out, whether that's vaginal or surgical. It's the actual experience, those memories that Charlene spoke about, and how, you look back on your memory. And Cara is saying, I love the idea of hypnobirthing. I'm a very stressed, anxious person, so this is definitely something I want to do for myself. Thank you so much for sharing. How long is the course, or when can you start? So I'll leave you to answer that. Thank you, Charlene.
So the course is, well, there's two options. There's the Relaxing to Birth on its own, which is just purely hypnobirthing and a long list of relaxation tools and tricks. So you don't have to think that you only have to use hypnobirthing for your birth. There's other tools and tricks that you can use. So that is about 250 minutes long, plus 13 hypnobirthing tracks. And then the other option is Relaxing to Birth Plus, which is extensive, complete antenatal course, which includes the hypnobirthing element. So I joined with the virtual midwife over there, Karen, to create Relaxing to Birth Plus. So there's two versions, and obviously the Plus version is much longer. But the wonderful thing about the courses is that you can do it at your own time. You can do it anytime because it's all online. All the videos are pre-recorded. So when you or your partner gets home from work, you can just put it on, sit back with a cup of tea on your belly, be careful, and watch and listen. And then the tracks you can download to your different devices to listen to them as you go through your life, leading up to your birth. And the more you listen, the more conditioned you are to a happy response to your birth, to your labor starting, which impacts obviously the hormones, as I spoke about. So you can start at any time. Better sooner rather than later, because then you've got time to practice the techniques and the tricks in order to be prepared, mentally prepared for your birth. Does that answer your question?
Well, I hope so. I will definitely do sooner rather than later, absolutely. And of course, the Relaxing to Birth course is going to be available through the Due Date Club. This is all about the collaboration. The Due Date Club essentially is about bringing all the experts together and making all the things that we know that you are looking for, and all the things that will make your birth easier, more of a positive experience, and making it accessible to you and in a way that it's easy for you to find. Because I know that when you're pregnant, there's so much information, it can feel really, really overwhelming, and you're looking online and it's quite disorganized when you're looking for that information, and you also get a lot of misinformation. And the reason that I brought these speakers together today and organized the summit was to give you an idea of the type of information and the type of experts who are out there who can offer this to you in a way that is easily accessible, and what difference it's going to make, and almost why you need this. So you're almost getting like a sneaky peek and an insider's view of all the support and complementary therapies, treatments, services, and products that are available to support you throughout your pregnancy. And essentially that's what the Due Date Club is all about.
Awesome.
And yes, I've got some lovely feedback here from Victoria Wall. Thank you so much, Victoria. Victoria was our previous speaker talking about prenatal and postnatal fitness and exercise and health. Cara, thank you. Charlene, your talk is so amazing that it seems like you've answered everybody's questions and really given them a great insight into exactly what hypnobirthing is about and how it can positively impact the birth experience.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on, Cara.
So I love having you. I love our partnership. I love our podcast. I love what we do together. And I love that doulas and midwives can work together. So, what is great about Charlene and I getting together is that we both come at birth with the same perspective, that we work with women and we want to support women during pregnancy. And as a doula, Charlene is there to provide all the emotional support and all the stuff that you need, both during pregnancy, during labor, and afterwards. As a midwife, I'm just coming in with a little bit more of the medical aspects and the physiological side, but together, it just kind of brings it all together and really supports you in a very holistic way.
Yes. And we have a question there. What is the podcast name? So it's under all three of our names. We've got the Virtual Midwife podcast, the Relaxing to Birth podcast, and the Doula and the Midwife podcast. It's all the same content.
All the same.
We just have three different channels that we put it through, and you can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts as well. So wherever you listen to your podcast, you'll find it on there, most definitely. Cool.
And you can binge listen to that.
Yes. Thank you.
And feel free. And of course, that's going to be part of the Due Date Club as well. All of these conversations and these kinds of things. Louise, good
Can't wait.